2 days of joint practices in the books for your New England Patriots with the Carolina Panthers. Preseason Game 2 looms on Friday night. What to watch for, and what should we be concerned or happy about with what we've already seen? Stay tuned. You're about to be locked in to the Locked On Patriots podcast.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all of you Foxborough faithful, and thank you once again for making Locked On Patriots your first listen every day and also a daily part of your New England Patriots coverage. Welcome to the pod. I am your host, Mike Debate. I cover your New England Patriots for Patriots Country of Sports Illustrated. Reach out to me. Let me know what's on your mind on Twitter at MDABATENFL. While you're out there showing some Twitter love to the Twitterverse, please be sure to follow the Locked On Patriots account as well at LO_Patriots. Remember, folks, Locked On Patriots is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And once again, here on a Thursday, we are joined by one of our very favorites here on the pod. Here today to help us break down all the ins and outs of everything we've seen over the course of 2 days of training camp practices, joint practices with the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, there was more to talk about on the field than just the fighting, folks. And we're going to get into that today and maybe a little bit more in terms of what Patriots Nation has on its mind. We've all got questions. My guest today has questions, and we're going to flip the script to be able to bring you all of the information that you need to help get you ready for tomorrow night's game against the Panthers. I am honored, humbled as always, to be joined by my illustrious co-host here on Locked On Patriots, a columnist extraordinaire for PatsPropaganda.com, the recipient of the best, or I should say the precipitator of the best recaps in the business. She is also a podcast host extraordinaire. Her podcast, A Clare Perspective, a Patriots podcast, one of the best listens you'll find in sports media anywhere. She is ClazzyClare Cooper. Claire, thank you so much today for joining me from across the pond and lending your wisdom and counsel the way only you can, Countess.
Oh, no. You are, as always, more than welcome. And I didn't melt with the surface of the sun, so I'm here. I'm back. Let's flip this script again.
Absolutely. We love flipping the script, and we love that the temperatures are a little more comfortable where you are, where we are. You know, it started, the breathing is a little bit better. That's always a good thing, and it's good for the guys on the field. But apparently it wasn't enough to cool down the guys on the field, as we all know. We talked about yesterday here on Locked On Patriots with my guest Tyler Lamb of the Gillette Gazette. We talked about some of those tempers flaring up, Claire. We know that there are a lot of questions on the mind of so many Patriots fans, even sports media. We know you have questions. So in the vein of flipping the script here on Locked On Patriots, I turn it over to you. I've been there. I've seen some of the things that have gone on in training camp with the New England Patriots. What's on your mind? What are the burning questions that you have after 2 days of training camp practices, joint practices with the Carolina Panthers?
Well, Mike, as you said, you've been there, you've seen that. So because of that, and us flipping the script again, because it was so popular, you need to sort of pick your brains, test your knowledge. And I'm going to start with the negative so that we can then kind of, end on the high notes a little bit later. But I'm going to start with the negative. What are your biggest concerns from joint practice?
That's good. I'm glad that we start off with the negatives. We get them out of the way, and then we can move forward with the principle of positivity. I know you've orchestrated this all. You are the puppet mistress of positivity because you're controlling everything, and we love it here on Locked On Patriots. And I kind of like being in this seat every now and then. No, all kidding aside, in terms of negatives or in terms of concerns, I would not put anything in a negative category that I saw. Things that really are red flags for me for the Patriots that say this is going to be a real major problem if they don't correct this into the season. I know colleagues of mine, and I know a lot of fans are very nervous about the play calling situation. I can tell you
Right.
that watching these teams, watching both these teams in action and watching the Patriots specifically on the offensive side of the ball did give me a little bit better of a feel as to how this is going to work. Now, will it work well? Will it not work so well? You really need to be in a game setting to be able to figure it out. But the Patriots clearly have a plan. They're not winging it. I saw that thrown around earlier this week, and I want to completely debunk that. You may not like the plan that they have, but they're certainly not winging it. This is not just Belichick deciding, after 50 some odd years of being a coach in this league, that he's just going to go out there and he's going to decide, yep, that's it. I'm just going to wing it and I'm going to see what's what. That's never been his MO. It never will be. So in terms of the play calling, I would not put that in a negative category right now. I think it's at worst, wait and see. And I think it has a chance to be better than people think. But we'll talk about the positives in just a moment. Things that surprised me on the maybe concerning side, there's still a concern about the offensive line to me, and I'll be honest. Mac Jones was very eloquent earlier this week when he expressed his confidence in the O-line and said that they were moving better in practice and were communicating better, and that is true. You definitely see that. But they did collectively have a pretty difficult time keeping him upright, keeping him, away from pressure. And that's something that will continue to cause problems. And Claire, we've talked about this several times, you and I offline as well as on the show, that Mac's biggest problems last year were when those blitzes came from the second and third level of the defense. If an offensive line is having trouble keeping pressure off of the quarterback, that's going to continue to happen because teams will continue to do it knowing it gives the quarterback problems. And they're going to continue to do it as long as the O-line allows it. So that needs to be shored up. I don't know if maybe the absence of Isaiah Wynn is hurting this team a little bit more than most people are letting on. I've been impressed with Yadni Kajust by what he's been able to do in his place, but at the same time, that's a concern of mine. So if I'm a New England Patriots fan, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, there's a concern there and there's something that needs to be addressed.
There's the other issue in regards to the offensive line, as you mentioned, Wynn's absence, but they picked up a few kind of injury issues on the O-line with their their second tier guys, for want of a better phrase, really, with Haran and Bill Murray not being seen in practice. So does the injury issue, I want to say, is that another concern of yours?
Yeah, I mean, injuries are always a concern at this time of year, and we definitely saw that with the cornerbacks, and I'll get to them in just a moment. But when it comes to the offensive line, Justin Herron struggling a little bit. He was having a solid camp right up until last week where he started to struggle with the number ones. Now, some will tell you that that was because of the injury, and it looks to me like it was because he was playing snaps with the number ones before that and was holding his own quite well. I don't think this is a competency issue or a talent issue on Justin. Patriots brass is very high on him for good reason. He's a solid offensive lineman, but at the same time, he also is not a starting capable offensive lineman, at least at this point in his career. So if he's struggling at all and he has any type of health issues that are preventing him from being able to play his game, that's only going to make matters worse. Yannick just has starting capability. His time at West Virginia showed him to be one of the more capable offensive linemen in the country. And a lot of people say that if he didn't have injury concerns coming into the 2019 draft, he might have gone a lot higher than he did. The Patriots might not have had a crack at him. I remember getting a text from a former colleague that I used to work with at Full Press Coverage saying, you guys just got Kajust. That is a huge steal for you. And I was a fan of Yadni's, or I should say I wasn't a fan of his. I knew his, his capabilities. I had watched some film on him, but I really became a fan of his after that text came in and I saw what he could do. If he can harness that energy, he may be onto something there. So naturally, there are concerns with injury. David Andrews left the game, the practice yesterday, left the field for a little bit. Word has it he'll be fine. I don't think there's any long-term concerns there with him. But if they start piling injuries on the offensive line, knowing this is the way to protect Mac Jones, that is definitely a concern. So a very good question, Claire.
Oh, thank you. Well, we have to touch on the negative first, and then we're going to move it on to the positive a little bit later.
Absolutely. We are going to move on to the positives a little bit later, and we will move into those positives in just a moment. What may look like a negative, folks, and it started off with some negative news earlier this week, might end up being a positive. But I'm going to let Claire ask that question in just a moment when this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast continues here as we flip the script and we talk about Patriots joint practices. But first, folks, as you gear up for the fall, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. How much better can you get? You can create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and who you'd like to hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Patriots fans, we are back with the illustrious ClazzyClare Cooper of Pat's Propaganda and a Patriots podcast that I know and love, and you should know and love as well, a Clare Perspective, a Patriots podcast. Watch for an episode dropping soon on that. You are not going to want to miss this, folks. I will not steal Claire's thunder, but trust me, you will not want to miss this episode. Claire, in the previous segment, we got the negatives out of the way when it comes to the New England Patriots and concerns that I have regarding their camp performance in joint practices. We didn't talk about the fights. We're not here to talk about the fights because I think they are isolated incidents. I think they will end up going away, but we're more concerned with the action on the field. So we're trying to keep things positive now. Claire,
the first rule of Fight Club, Mike, is you don't talk about Fight Club.
That is true. This is true. This is absolutely true. Yep. I like it. I like it a lot. I do.
I knew you'd like the movie reference. That's why I had to
the cat
quickly
there
throw
at the
that
movie
in there.
reference. See, she's getting more comfortable in that each and every day. Pretty soon, folks, not going to need me anymore. But all kidding aside, Countess, I am impressed, and I also, because I'm so impressed, I am going to turn the chair back over to you. You have the baton. You have the command. What else is on your mind when it comes to training camp practices and joint practices with the Panthers, Countess?
Well, Mike, I hate to state the obvious, but we did the negative. We did what the concerns were. And yeah, I fully agree with you. O-line is a bit of a concern for me right now. So we did that in the previous segment. So it's natural. We have to go there. We need to look at the biggest positives that you took away from joint practice.
Biggest positives that I took away from joint practice. It was great seeing Ryan Izzo back on the field in Foxborough, and yep, absolutely. He didn't quite make it out of training camp practices, joint practices unscathed. We won't see him on the field, unfortunately, on Friday night. He was let go by the Carolina Panthers, but it was good seeing Ryan back out there, and I definitely. As I saw him take the field, I definitely thought of you, Countess. So I definitely wanted to share that. Positives, tight endage. Why don't we start right off with some tight endage? We'll please the Countess right off the bat here.
Yeah,
Jonnu Smith, I thought, had a very good day, especially on Wednesday. I thought his opportunity to, not only showcase what he can do in one-on-one reps, he drew a holding penalty, which shows that he's definitely able to hold his own against defenders, maybe get them to, misfire or miscue just a little bit. That's an important part of being a great tight end and a great pass catcher, is knowing how to draw your opponent into making a mistake before you do. One of the things that I loved seeing, I saw him, beat Jeremy Chin on a crossing route down in the red zone. These are things that we didn't see Jonnu do a whole lot of last year. And we got glimpses of it in mini camp. We got glimpses of it in training camp practice. But until these guys get into a competitive setting, you really don't know what you're going to see. We saw a little bit of it against the Giants last Thursday. We definitely saw some on Wednesday. I thought it was the better of his 2 days, but that's certainly a positive and something that I think Patriots fans should really be excited about. Jonnu Smith is coming to play this year, and that's a good thing for the Pats.
Do you think the lack of usage of him in the Giants game was actually more significant to, that they're protecting him as one of the number one tight ends, and the fact that he is really showcasing in training camp, it just adds the extra positive layer to what we may see from him this year?
Well, that really is what we saw in the Giants game. It's not so much that we saw him on the field. We know he didn't take a snap. It's the fact that he sat
Mhm.
there with the starting unit. You knew that he was going to be someone that the Patriots already have the confidence in. They didn't have to look at him.
Yeah.
I was one of the ones that thought that they would try to throw him out there, look at him, show a little bit of the snap, show what he can do. They didn't need to do that. That to me speaks volumes. So the fact that he didn't
Mhm.
take a
Yeah.
snap is actually something I think more noteworthy about what we saw from him or didn't see from
Mhm.
him on Thursday. And I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to clarify that a little bit because she's a great co-host, folks. She really is. But no, all kidding
I do
aside,
try.
you do, yeah, and you succeed. But
Thank you.
all kidding aside, that is one of the things that definitely I believe. Speaks volumes about how much confidence they
Mhm.
have in him this year. So yeah, without any question, I think we'll see a little bit of him on Friday, and I think Patriots fans are going to be impressed by what they see.
Is there anything else, any sort of other furthers that you'd like to take away? I mean, the depth at wide receiver core is still quite an interesting situation, particularly with rumours of trades of Aguilar and stuff. Sort of what are you taking away positively in regards to the wide receivers?
Well, I don't want to steal any thunder from my good friend at Patriots.com, Evan Lazar, who wrote a brilliant piece on Nelson Aguilar on Wednesday evening. He basically said everything that I've been feeling regarding Nelson. I think he has
Hmm.
shown tremendous strides. I think he's been one of the more reliable receivers that the Patriots have put out there. He's been very good in one-on-one drills, caught a pair of touchdowns in 11 on 11s. He's shown that not only can he deliver the play of the day, but he can also, go up in traffic, come down with a catch when he needs to. He's been much better running his routes, especially running from a fade. That really is where you can see him showcase his
Hmm.
talent. I think putting him on the trading block or moving him is a mistake. Now, does that mean they're not going to do it? No, I mean the Patriots are going to do whatever they feel is in the best interest of the football team. So I would not take that off the table just yet, or think it's not going to happen. But from my perspective, I think Nelson has showed enough to me to say that he can be a very, very valuable weapon in this offense this year. And Mac Jones has loved working with him. Mac had nothing but great things to say about him in the aftermath of practice on Wednesday. I think Nelson Aguilar has truly been a bright spot, and I really one of the better positives to take away from this is knowing that if the Patriots are going to have him as a solid member of that wide receiver rotation, they're doing pretty well for
Hmm.
themselves at this point. So that is another offensive positive that I would take away from that.
What about defense? I mean, there was a lot talked about previously with defense. Previous training camps, as I said, with the Giants, there was a lot of positivity coming out of the defense because they seem to be stronger. Is there any more positives that you took away from the more recent training camp in regards to the defensive line?
Yeah, there were definitely a couple. The first that I'm looking at is the potency of the front seven as a whole. The defensive line
Hmm.
and the defensive tackles look like they're getting more push. They're actually able to get into position to stop the run a little bit better. It's still early. There's some
Hmm.
communication issues, but those
Sure.
can be worked upon. The fundamentals are sharper this year, and that's something the Patriots fans should be happy about. The edge rushers are getting after the quarterback a little bit more, and that's because there's speedy linebackers that are pacing the middle part of that defense that are
Hmm.
allowing for better moving, better facilitating. So guys like Mac Wilson, Anthony Jennings, even Cam McGrone, who's had some growing pains, he's showing a tremendous amount of athleticism. These guys are really popping when it comes to the eye and when it also comes to the action on the field. So I love what I'm seeing from the front seven. But my biggest positive on the defense right now has got to be Jalen Mills at the cornerback
Mm.
position. Excuse me. It would have been so easy for the Patriots to fold up shop after J.C. Jackson left, saying they don't have a number
Yeah.
one corner. And especially after the losses of both Malcolm Butler and Jawan Williams. I know Jawan was struggling to make the team, and there was some question about whether he was going to contribute, but most people felt that Malcolm Butler was going to be a big contributor on this team. Maybe not a starter, but definitely one of the better zone corners on this staff. And also from an experience and from a leadership perspective, he was really going to be the glue that's going to hold that team together. You're not going to have those guys this year. So Jalen really has stepped up and looked every bit the number one corner. Had a great performance on Tuesday. I thought his best camp performance thus far. And he basically came right back out on Wednesday and said, you know what, this is how it's going to be. We're going to continue to do that. Locking down DJ Moore, who's the Panthers' top receiver. Great stuff from Jalen Mills. So big positive there for the cornerbacks. I know a lot of people are worried about the depth at that position, but if you're worried about Jalen stepping up and being a number one, from what I've seen, he looks like he's ready for the challenge.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
It is good stuff. It's always good stuff when you see the Patriots performing well on the field, and we love seeing the Patriots perform well on the field, but there is a game on Friday night, and I know, Claire, you have some burning questions regarding that game, so we're going to talk about that in just a moment when this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast wraps up. Patriots fans, on a serious note, you're hanging out with some friends and you're putting back a few drinks, and a few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end, people start to head out and you think of calling for a ride, but your first instinct is, nah, live nearby, you can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, or you kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and they're often deadly. However, there still doesn't stop anyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads. They're doing it to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or to change someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Patriots fans, the illustrious ClazzyClare Cooper joins me here today to wrap things up here on the Locked On Patriots podcast, putting a nice little neat bow on 2 days of joint practices as we head towards preseason game number 2 at Gillette Stadium on Friday night in Foxborough, 7 p.m. Eastern kickoff here in New England. Claire, I know you're looking forward to this game. I know you look forward to the preseason. You love to see what the Patriots can do. As you're watching or as you're going this, what are some of the questions that you have that you're hoping to see or maybe hoping not to see on Friday? And how can I be of assistance with helping to answer those?
Well, initially, Mike, it was going to be, so what do you think we're going to get from Ryan Izzo then? How much do you think I'm going to see Ryan Izzo then? And obviously that falls flat because, as you mentioned earlier in the show, one of my favourite ever has been released by the Panthers. So we'll put a pin in that one and move that quite along, shall we? Because you guys aren't here to listen to me going on about Izzo anyway. What you guys are here for is to listen to what this guy has got to tell you about your New England Patriots. And because of that, Michael, we would like to know from you, what is it that you, the illustrious Mike Diabate, is looking for in this preseason game 2 on Friday night against the Panthers?
Well, illustrious. Hold on. Let me calm down from the illustrious comment for just a moment. You are far too kind. I assure you. But no, all kidding aside,
the
thank
sensei
you.
of Sports Illustrated.
Hey, I like that. The sensei. That's pretty good. Cobra Kai, less than a month away. Very well, very strategically placed. Terry Silver would be very happy. Yeah, Terry Silver would be very proud of you. Sensei Terry Silver would be very proud of you. No, all kidding aside, in terms of what we can expect to see on the field, I know everyone in Patriots Nation and a lot of people in Panthers Nation too are going to expect to see these two teams erupt once again. It happened both days in training camp. Tempers are flaring. Obviously, the unfortunate news that Christian Wilkerson has suffered a head injury. He's going to miss some time. The reaction of the way that went down yesterday, when you see Matthew Slater getting involved, you know something is definitely up. Matthew was very pointed in his comments post practice on Wednesday, and for good reason. There's no question about it. But I will say this. I do think that type of behavior, I do think that type of animosity will be, squelched for Friday night's game. I don't expect there to be any type of, melee or anything like that. Of course, I'm saying this and thinking that it wouldn't happen again on Wednesday, and it did. So as Hector Barbosa would say, I won't be making that mistake again. I'm not going to
Oh
say
no,
never.
we had to
I'm
go there.
I'm not going to say never, but I will, say that I don't expect it to put it that
Mhm.
way. I'm not saying it won't happen, but I'm saying I don't expect it. I think Bill Belichick will have his guys, pretty much in check, and Matt Rule will as well on the Panthers side.
Mm.
What am I expecting to see? Panthers are looking to play their starters. Matt Rule said this on Tuesday. He's going to come out and he's going to. I'm sorry, they're going to play their backups, and they're going to have their second stringers in. So I expect the Patriots. Sorry, folks. I expect the Patriots to play their starters on Friday night. I do think that after most of them sitting, you're going to want to get these guys some action. And even though I know there's looming, joint practices with the Raiders next week that is going to happen, and maybe the Patriots throw their starters out a little more in preseason game 3 than they normally would in the finale, I do think you're going to see the Patriots starters play. So I'm looking at how does Mac Jones facilitate and utilize play action? That's something that the Patriots did not do
Mhm.
against the Giants because the Giants were blitzing a lot. And that's something you usually
Mhm.
don't see in preseason games. I don't think Carolina is going to be that aggressive with the blitz. So it may give the Patriots an opportunity to showcase some of that play action, some of that zone read. Are we going to see this new look Patriots offense utilizing guys like Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson and really seeing what guys like Ty Montgomery, maybe even a Pierre Strong, is going to do in this offense? James White is no longer walking through the door. On the defensive side, Malcolm Butler is no longer walking through the door.
Mm.
Those are two veteran presences that the Patriots were counting on this year. And I can tell you from, talking to people close to the organization, they were counting on that being a big part of that. So I look to see how the Patriots can rebound and who's going to take that leadership role on the field, not name Mac Jones.
Quick side note, simply because of what you've just said, and it just popped into my brain that there is no James White, he's retired, and as you said, Malcolm Butler and I are we now devoid of anyone on the Patriots that was in the dynasty? Is that it? Have we got? Is there no one left on the team?
Well, on the defensive side of the ball, you still have Devin McCourty, you still have Matthew Slater, you still have
Of
David
course,
Andrews
yeah.
at the center position.
No, you're
So
quite right. You're quite right.
there are still, remnants of that period. There's no question about it, but they get fewer and farther between every single year. So,
Yeah,
it is something to say. I mean, obviously time has to move on. You can't always lament
sure,
and
of course.
worry about what's in the past. Mac Jones is the quarterback now. It is not Tom Brady any longer. It hasn't been for 2
It's the
years.
new dynasty.
So now it's that growing, that budding new team that's coming out. I'm not going to call them a dynasty because Bill Belichick
I
can get
will.
very upset with me if I say that. But no, all kidding aside, I mean they have the opportunity to build something special here with New England, but it's got to
Mhm.
be a step by step, a brick by brick process, and they will continue to do that. So I look for that on Friday. I'm looking to see how Mac looks, just basically, I
Mhm.
mean, getting
Yeah.
him out there in a game setting. He hasn't been out there in a game setting since, unfortunately, since that debacle in Buffalo back in January. So we want to see what Mac can do, and we want to see him, be able to run this offense efficiently in a game setting. And then on the defensive side of the ball, just more of what I had talked about earlier, the linebackers being a big part of this. You also want to take a look at the cornerbacks and the safeties and see how that defensive backfield is going to shake out. Now that the Patriots know that they're going to be down 2 spots, who steps up to try to get that last spot on the depth
Mhm.
chart? Miles Bryant made a good case for it last week. He
Mhm.
stepped up
Yeah.
and looked good in joint practices. Sean Wade has actually had a very quietly good, training
Yeah.
camp so far. So
Okay.
he may try to ascend to that level. A lot to look for, a lot to think about. But I'm looking forward to next week's. I'm looking forward to this game on Friday. I'm really looking forward to next week's joint practices in Las Vegas to see what this team really could look like heading into roster cutdowns. But eyes are on the prize on Friday, and I think the Patriots are looking to erase last week's loss and that bad taste in their mouth, especially after everything that went down this week.
Yeah, let's hope that the kind of the run of an excessive amount of penalties it would seem in the Giants game. There was more than 12 penalties called against the Patriots, I think, in the Giants game. So I really hope that the fights at the joint practice don't sort of roll on into that, and we get plenty of laundry, shall we say. So fingers crossed that that's something that we avoid, definitely.
Absolutely, without any question. And Claire, it is always, always fun to be able to talk football with you, talk Patriots training camp. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of like the flipping the script format here a little bit. This is pretty good. But next week, folks, we're going to flip that script back over because not only does Claire have a lot of questions, she has been compiling a ton of wisdom and counsel, saving it all for this very moment. Next week here on Locked On Patriots, we will flip the script back over and I will grill Claire about all of her insight that she's compiled in Patriots training camp to date. So definitely check that out. And of course, continue to make Locked On Patriots a daily part of your New England Patriots coverage. For that, I could not be more grateful. And I thank you for doing so. And also for making us your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On Patriots is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So definitely smash that subscribe button and download, subscribe to, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Countess, what can I say? I thank you for everything that you've done here for Locked On Patriots and for continuing to be one of our most valued guests. Before I let you go, are there any parting shots, anything you'd like to share with your adoring public here on Locked On Patriots?
Oh, well, thank you. Adoring public, I don't really think that's, I think that's a bit unfair to say, but still, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I just wanted to give a quick shout out because there will be a new episode of A Clare Perspective dropping hopefully tomorrow, I believe. So it's a bit of a special episode. It's kind of a woman in sports media sort of, not montage, but episode to discuss. So I won't give away any more. So basically, make sure you go and check out A Clare Perspective. As I said, hopefully tomorrow, but by the weekend, you'll have that new episode up. So yeah, wherever you kind of download your podcasts, that's where you will find it.
Definitely, folks. And I can tell you, and I will not steal her thunder, but let's just say two of the greats will be talking about a very great subject and also sharing their wisdom and counsel the way only they can. And one of them is in the next little box right over here. But folks, in the meantime, continue to download A Clare Perspective, a Patriots podcast, but also please continue to show your support to Locked On Patriots. We appreciate it more than words can say. And I thank you each and every day for spending time with us here on Locked On Patriots. And now that you've made us your first listen, make your second listen our good friends over at Locked On NFL, covering all the major NFL news. All the national news is covered by our great network of hosts when it comes to the Locked On Podcast Network, and they do a fine job. So definitely be sure to subscribe to, follow, download, whatever you need to do to consume that. Do it. You'll be a better football fan, I guarantee it. On behalf of the illustrious Countess of Class, the Empress of Tight Endage, the Principal of Positivity, the illustrious ClazzyClare Cooper, I'm Mike Debate. Continue to stay safe, stay well, be the change that you wish to see in the world, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you all again tomorrow.